All right, welcome. I have a special guest here today. I'm so excited to hear from him. He's my friend. He's my motivator. He is Dr. Antoine Moss. Many of you have seen him at my Freedom Conference. He really motivates and inspires people, and I call him the motivator. That's all I call him. But I just want to thank you, Dr. Moss, for being on Mount Zion Conversations today.
Glad to be here, Pastor Larry. It's always a pleasure to connect with your constituents on your platform.
Dr. Moss, what are some of the post-coronavirus tips that you can give people on what they should be doing now to prepare for after the pandemic is over?
So Larry, that's a great question because oftentimes we forget about the whole thought and process in terms of planning. We like to kind of live in the moment and don't do too much planning. But at some point, we're in tough times right now, but at some point, we'll be out of the tough times. So one of the things I want to say is that keep this in mind. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. So in an effort to show your toughness, you have to start planning for what life will look like after this pandemic. More particularly, what you want your life to look like. One of the upshots of this whole pandemic is that not only has your world stopped or changed, but the whole world has stopped and changed. And I think that it's a good time for us to take a moment to take a step back or even two steps back and reflect on where we are, where we've come from, but more importantly, where do we want to go? So now is the time to not necessarily be in the dumps. Again, we're all in this thing together, but now's the time for you start to pivot and start to think strategically and think, what do I want my life to look like after this pandemic? So for me, I'll just be personal. So for me, I want to make certain that I'm in top-notch health and shape. So what I'm doing now is that I'm trying to create a healthy eating practice. I'm not there yet, but that's where I want. I also want to be in good physical shape. So I'll get a routine and stick with it. So for me, before I would just kind of come and go at the gym, but now I want to make certain that I come up with a good plan and regimen and actually stick with it. So the biggest thing that we all should be doing right now is to start planning where we want to be. And then also in your planning, you should also write goals. So one of the things that I've done, this is a really good question because one of the things that I've done is that I've listed my top 8 things or so that I want to do while I'm in this pandemic. So I'm starting to work them now. And then also once we're out of it, I'll actually see that I've made progress. You don't want to waste this period because we got a lot of time to ourselves. And you want to make certain that you're productive. So make a list. My list is about 8. One is health and wellness. So make your list, and then you'll be so pleased if you start working your list now. Once we're finally out of this pandemic, a month, 2 months, however long it lasts, you'll actually be able to look back and say, hey, although I was in a pandemic, I was still productive. So let this pandemic lead to you being productive.
What's your best motivational advice that you can give people on how to prepare for life after COVID-19?
So the best advice that I can give now to help people prepare for the life after the pandemic, the best advice I can give people now to help them prepare for life after the pandemic. One of the things that I do a whole lot with myself and also individuals I work with is I work on mindset transformation. One of my mentors, Dr. Wayne Dyer, said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Half empty or the glass being half full. Then also along the same lines, you've heard of post-traumatic stress before. I like to flip that thing. I don't want to get stuck in the stress. We all experience stress. We'll be there for a little while. That's fine. But at some point, you have to rise above that. So I like the term, and this is a psychological term, but I like the term, won't be the same. So you have to make certain that your life is not the same in a more productive and positive way. Don't let things keep you down. Somebody also once said, things happen to you, things happen around you, things happen to you, things happen around you, but what matters most is what happens around. I can't get that. I'll do it again. Things happen to you, things happen around you, but what matters most is what happens. So you want to make sure that you stay motivated, and you don't want to come out of this disgruntled. You want to come out of this motivated, energized to make certain that you help get your life to the next level.
What's your advice for our small business owners?
I'm glad you asked that question. Small business owner. So, in terms of being a small business owner, you created your brand, you create your product or service to make certain that you reach people where they are. And any small business is simply to, it's created to solve a problem, fill a gap, fix a hole. Now, in terms of the gap or hole that you have to fill, you may have to be a little more innovative to reach your target audience and target market, because things will not go back to how they were. So you have to be a little more flexible. So think about, let's say, the I don't know, Chipotle, the restaurant industry, fast food. So I imagine that their to go and delivery orders are going to be on the uptick. So they are on the uptick. So, and I don't think they'll ever go back to lower than what they to as low as they were prior to the pandemic. So I think a good thing for the restaurant industry is that to-go orders will become more common. Now, what they did is they actually became more flexible, agile, and they were able to pivot. We can't have people come into our restaurants because the restaurants are closed down, but how can we enhance our infrastructures to still get people the food that they need, the people the food that they want? So in terms of small businesses, you have to, again, stay motivated. And this is the time in industry and business, it's all about innovation. So you have to be innovative. You have to make certain that you effectively pivot to where the market is taking you to, and make certain that you deliver on that like nobody else can. And another thing about that is that we're all in this together. So your constituents know that it's been a hard time or tough time. So they'll be there to support you. I would like to say that you should poll your constituents or your customers and say, how can we, even before the pandemic is over, start planning now? I already talked about planning, but start your strategic planning now. Talk to your customers, do some market research, and look at the other businesses or companies around you and see how they are pivoting. And even if it's not in the exact same industry as you, look to other industries, because you still may be able to get some ingenuity, best practices out of seeing what other people are doing in other industries. So stay motivated, don't give up, do some benchmarking, and also talk to your clientele to see what you can do to still help serve their needs where they are.
Right now, just motivate us right now before we go.
And so with me being, my whole brand is based on inspiration, known as the man of inspiration. So I can't emphasize enough that you have to stay inspired during these tough times. More importantly, for the generation that's behind you and the generation that's behind them, they're looking to us. They've never been here before. And we've never been here before. But we are the elders of our community. And I also, speaking of community, I would say get involved in your local community. Give back where and however you can. It kind of sucks where we are, but again, an upshot of this is that we are a little more connected across the board than we were prior to this. Before, we lived in our bubbles, but Corona said, I'm gonna pop that bubble. So the coronavirus and other things that's going on has popped our bubble. So make certain that you stay connected, and also give back to your community wherever you can, how much you can. And then again, this generation behind us is looking up to us to help be the light to knowledge and exposure for them. One quote that I had in my first book is, leaders should be the light to knowledge and exposure as opposed to the door to failure and closure. So we'll be the door to failure and closure if we don't be a positive example for them. But I wanted to encourage each person that we have to, it's our duty to be good stewards of our environment and also our community, to make certain that we be a shining light and example for others behind us. If you don't do it for yourself, if you don't do it for your family and friends, do it for the others behind them, because someone who you were behind opened doors for you as well. So let's be a good example, role model, and blueprint for how to bounce back from when we experience traumatic experiences in life. Let's not stay where the stress is, but let's grow, post-traumatic growth.
I just want to thank you for tuning into this webinar today, and our topic is the secret to your success, key strategies to reach your potential post-COVID-19. As we begin our talk today, one of the most popular movies of 2006 was a movie by the name of The Pursuit of Happiness. It was a movie starring Will Smith and his son Jaden Smith. It was based upon this rags to riches story of Chris Gardner. Now, to summarize the story quickly, Chris Gardner was a man trying to survive in life, pursuing a dream. And Chris spent all of his savings. He spent his last dime on a product that he felt would turn his situation around. He bought a bunch of medical scanners in which he tried to sell to doctors, only to find out to his dismay that his medical scanners were obsolete because of the invention of the X-ray machine. The path he thought would bring him success became blocked, and what he thought was going to bring him happiness was just a dead end. You know, I know many of you feel today that you're in a dead-end situation due to this pandemic. You know, businesses have to be shut down. People have to live this new normal and not really knowing where things are going or how things are going to get back to the way they used to be. Well, I want to tell you this today that, trouble doesn't last always, and you have to prepare yourself for what's next. There's a future. Well, to go back to my story, Chris's first pursuit of happiness was quickly brought to a close. Again, it didn't work out. And so one day, while walking down the street of New York City, at a place called Wall Street, he encountered this stockbroker and he encountered all these businessmen who, in his mind, had obtained happiness. And he set out that he would one day become those stockbrokers who seemed to be above others, seemed to possess the happiness that he so eagerly longed for. Well, the movie goes on to show that in Chris's pursuit of happiness, he loses his wife, loses his home, and almost loses his son. Yet in the midst of all his losses, he persevered in his pursuits. And in doing so, he increased the probability of his possibility of reaching true happiness. And later, in that story, he attains that which he sought and reaches goals, only to realize that it wasn't money that brought him happiness. It wasn't the job he wanted that brought him true happiness, but actually the happiness lied in his willingness to persevere. So I can give you any help on how to attain your goals and turn a challenging time into a primer for a bright future, it would be to persevere. That's my simple message. Just like Chris Gardner, some of us are in pursuit of our own happiness. However, our standards, our view, our goal of what happiness is sometimes can be so far from what it's really all about. Think about it. Most of us, we measure happiness by the car we drive, the clothes we wear, the amount of money that we possess, the groups and social settings we belong to, or the type of job we have, the position over others that we possess. But if you ask someone who's older, someone in their 80s, someone in their 90s, somebody that's been there, done that, they'll tell you that your valuables aren't the source of true success, and they're not the true source of happiness. Some of the saddest people I know are those that have more stuff than you can imagine. Some of the saddest people I know run in a circle like a cat chasing its tail, looking for love and happiness in all the wrong places, only to find that they have a huge treasure chest with no real treasure in it. So my advice during this webinar for you tonight is like in the Bible. I believe it is found in Matthew chapter 5. I want you to prepare for a bright future. You've got to keep your eyes on things that will not change. Possess traits that will outlive the temporary. One of the things you should do right now is be a giver. That's point number one. Blessings are directly correlated to what you give, which in turn determines what you receive. So now is the time to sow your seed. Educate yourself. Invest in the right people. Invest in the right business. Invest in the right ventures. What we are encountering one day will pass. And now is the time to prepare for that. You know, one saying I love is a saying that says this: blessed are the poor in spirit. What does that mean? What does it mean, blessed are the poor in spirit? It simply means basically you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. It just means it's time for a shift. It's time to get a new rope to climb, a new adventure to go on. So if you're feeling like you're at the end of your rope, don't worry. It's just time to make a shift in your life in a better direction. That's what it's all about. Also, now is the time to learn the art of contentment. You're in better shape when you learn to be happy with who you are, who God made you to be. You know, the worst thing you can do in life is not accept who you were made to be. Now is the time to embrace your strengths and prepare to use them in a way that you've never used them before. You know, maybe if you're a good writer, it's a good time to start writing that book. If you're a good salesman, maybe now is a better time than ever to sell what people really need right now. There's always an opportunity in the midst of challenges. You have the gift of life right now. And now that we see how precious it really is, it's time to live it to the fullest and to take control. But another thing I want to do, and I want to tell you today, is remember that now is a time to seek peace in your life. Many people have come to me and said this. It's amazing how all that's been going on this year has caused me to do something that I've never done, that I never do. And that is to slow down a little bit. It brought me something I've needed for a long time. They say it's brought me peace. One thing I've learned time and time again is that it's hard to climb the ladder to your destiny if your life is in turmoil. A peaceful road is always an easier road to get where you're going. You think you can, think about it, you can think clear when you're in a peaceful state. You can work on your goals better when you're in a peaceful state. So now is the time to be thankful for the peace. And so in the future, you'll be ready for the challenges or the opportunities and have the strength to face them. So all I want to take the time to say to you tonight is to climb the highest mountain you can. Even if there's resistance, you can do it. Even if the road gets rough, keep on going, keep on pressing. Remember, the higher the mountain, the sweeter the victory. That's what it's all about. And don't forget, in this world, you'll have some trouble. You have some, what the Bible says, tribulations. In this world, trouble's going to knock at many doors. But watch this. God said, I have overcome it all. So remember to stick to your faith, and it will help you as you head into your tomorrows. Listen, I would love to continue the conversation with you, and I have a new book that I want to share with you tonight. It's called The Secret to Your Success, 12 Steps to Turning Your Dreams into a Reality. I really believe this will help you out. If you want to reach your potential after these challenging times, I want you to remember these key points, and then we will close this webinar. If you can face it, you can fix it. Remember that. If you can face it, you can fix it. Step out of your comfort zone. Now is the time to do some things that may be a little uncomfortable. Free yourself from the limits of life. And don't let fear stop you. Keep the faith. Start working on projects that maximize your strengths and not your weaknesses. Don't settle for less than the best. Find the good in everything that you go through. All we encounter can be a lesson and can even be a blessing. And lastly, never lose your enthusiasm. If you can live your life following these principles, I guarantee and decree that the future is going to be a bright one for you. Again, I want to thank you for your time, for hearing this message, and I pray that you're staying safe and are staying very well. I'd love for you to pick up my book and also share it with a friend. It'll give you a whole new perspective on life and on what success is really all about, and it will prepare you for post-COVID-19. I want to thank Thriving Financial for all your help in developing this platform for me to speak to the people. And now I want to have this chat with Melissa Bell on some financial strategies to help you through these challenging times. Take care, and God bless you. Well, I hope you enjoyed the webinar, but it's not over yet. I have Melissa Bell here, who's from our sponsor, Thriving Financial. Melissa is a community engagement leader. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being on the webinar with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
And you have helped so many people, including myself and a lot of my friends, when it comes to being wise with money. But you helped me out with one thing that I want our viewers to know about, and that's called rebalancing your budget, especially during this pandemic and even for after. So tell us a little bit about those tools.
Well, we have a lot of tools you can use virtually to help you rebalance, but the most important thing that you can do in this time is reflection. Yeah. Taking a real deep dive at where you're at and restructuring your values and your budget, or your budget to meet those values. Mm-hmm. Likely things have changed a little bit for you over these past few months, and this is a wonderful time to reflect and rebalance.
Wow, you have some tools for that. Tell us about that tool that you have available.
We do. So we have a free template that you can use to balance those monthly expenses. We also, if you don't want the paper and like the virtual ease, on Thrivent.com, we have a virtual balancing sheet through our credit union where you can enter in your figures and find something that's going to be valuable to you to use.
That's good, but you also help with spending. I know a lot of people right now need some help to figure out, hey, what should I be really spending my money on right now?
Well, and as I mentioned, life has changed a little bit lately, and likely you have found ways that you are not spending the money that you used to spend. So this is a great time to look at those practical items and things that you had been spending money on in the past that maybe now have changed. You know, maybe those fancy coffees that you were picking up every day when you were out and about. Obviously, you've been living without those, and you might find that that's something that you want to continue because there's an opportunity for you to spend in different ways, and maybe ways that are a little bit more impactful to you or your community. For example, you know, supporting your congregation, your church, and the programs that it's offering. Or maybe you have found that supporting local business is very important to you, and you'd like to find ways to do that more often. So you can restructure that budget to find those pockets where you can spend it in different ways.
So the biggest strategy, again, is to rebalance, restructure, and also balance your spending. So I appreciate you, Melissa, for giving us those tips. And those resources can be found where? Where can we find those resources?
At thrivent.com, you can start. And if you put in the word budget in search, you're going to find a lot of great information, resources, and tools for you to balance. You can also find a financial professional located in your area, and that is probably our best tool we offer because they can find solutions that are tailored specifically for you.
You know, I can attest to that. The financial professionals at Thrivent have been a joy to work with. So I just want to behoove all of our viewers to make sure you go to thrivent.com, and there'll be some great resources and great people for you to work with. Again, Melissa, thank you so much for these tips and these tools. And I hope you have a safe rest of the summer.
Oh, thanks to you too.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think that was good.